Hey, what's up, card fighters? I know this deck profile is like super late, but I did do a community post on like, hey, would you like to see this deck? And I know it was like highly requested because it's one of the main guys of like the channel. It's the namesake of the channel. But before we get into the deck profile, I do want to have like a quick little mention that we are selling these playmats. If you wanted to DM our Facebook page, or you could also reach me from the Gmail BEO Vanguard at gmail.com, all lowercase. And we are selling these. We do have like a very small supply. I didn't get too many because I wasn't sure how many how many people would actually want these. But please, if you can, support the channel. And even if you can't buy one right now, it's completely understandable. If you just like tell a friend, or like, comment, and share, and just talk about these, then we can get these circulating and moving throughout the Vanguard community. Because this is a very dope playmat. All shout outs to the artist, of course. But getting onto the deck profile, really not much to talk about on the ride line. You run the pony because of the Monadine. I run the KO starter because it looks cool. But getting onto our soul chargers, I still play. Let's see here. Yeah, right there seems good. I still play 4 Pandemonium Tactics. I really do want to play the new order just because of how versatile it is. Like, it does 2 different things. It's so like cards that I really want for this deck in the future are more cards that do 2 different things. What are those 2 different things? Like a skill that the deck needs, which is like, you could say, consistency, and soul charge. So like, it does soul charge plus something else. Like, those are the best cards in this deck. But obviously, you still have to run this because it's just a Soul Charge 4, Soul Charge 5 with Amadadine. Again, I really want to run the new guy, but this Pandemonium Tactics plus Curtis and plus Amadadine. That's like your that's the lowest of how many cards? I believe so, yeah. If you have those 3 cards, you have 15 cards in Soul. So like, that's just like the easiest combination of, or like the smallest combination of cards that get you to your 15 Soul. You just need one of this, and your Amadadine, and then you already have your pony on your ride line. But obviously 4 copies of Curtis. Curtis is still good. Again, the best cards in this deck are cards that soul charge plus do something else. Is this getting cut off? No. 4 copies of Selfish Engraver, not much to talk about here. She's a counter charger / soul charger. 3 copies of Twin Sword. I cut this down to 3 because of certain new cards, but I wouldn't run. I know people are already cutting this card down to 3, but I wouldn't run less than 3 in my personal opinion, because this card's like, he's your bread and butter in terms of your like spreading power offensively, and he's your bread and butter in terms of like sculpting your hand defensively, because that's mainly what I use him for, to add over triggers to my hand, to add perfect guards to my hand. So he's still a very important piece to the deck, and depending on the combination of cards, he can help you get to 15 Soul from Amadadine. And then 4 copies of Darfodol Amadadine. She's still pretty much like the lifeblood of the deck. Like, without this card, it's just like really, it just takes so many cards to get to 15 Soul. And like I said, Amadadine plus Pandemonium plus Curtis, just those 3 cards. I know this is a 3 counterblast play, counting your BAROMAGNES' counterblast. I do understand this is 3 counterblasts, but this is just, again, like, this is the best combination of cards you can open up with, because it just requires 3 cards, versus if like you had, like, say you had the Order and Amadadine, that's 12 cards, I believe. Yeah, that's 12 cards by itself. So you would then need, so let's getting on to our final grade 1 is 3 copies of Brain Swirler. I wish I could play more, but I can only squeeze in 3 in this version of the build. But again, another combination of cards that gets you to 15 soul is Pandemonium Tactics, Amadadine, 2 Brain Swirlers. Yes. Pandemonium Tactics, Amadadine, 2 Brain Swirlers, and a Selfish Engraver. Now you see the difference versus this is a 3-card combo, and if we don't have, like, if we're missing one piece of this 3-card combo, it automatically, like, converts into, like, 3 different cards. So instead of taking 3 cards to get to 15 soul on our first grade 3 ride-up, it's going to take 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to take 5 cards to get 15 soul on our first grade 3 ride-up. Or, let's say we don't have this, so our soul count's going to be 7 with just the Amadadine. And so if we just have 7 soul, then we're going to need a combination of Amadadine. Let's see here, Curtis is 10. Amadadine, double Curtis, and 1 Brain Swirler is also 15 cards in soul. So again, that's a 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a 4-card combo, which isn't as bad as 5-card combo. Like, this is like a really good 5-card combo, don't get me wrong, just because you spread power with the swirlers. But it's just like I said, like, you really do want to maximize on the soul charges that get you the most amount of soul, you know, for the least amount of cost, because, like, at the end of the day, this is a combo deck, and it's just like turbo to 15 soul, and then hope. It's like turbo to 15 soul and hope that you either surmount enough pressure to either win the game there or cripple your opponent enough that they can't win the game on the next turn. That's why it's so important that you sculpt your hand defensively with your twin swords. But getting on to the rest of the deck, I play 2 copies of Keenly Lewdly. I really do want to cut this down to 1 copy, but because we can't fish cards, like, currently we can't fish cards out of our drop zone. If I just see this in damage zone or, like, drop zone, it's gone forever. So I do need to play 2 copies of Keenly Lewdly. She just helps prevent deck out, or she could just become a very massive attacker. And then 2 copies of Lilac Lasher. This is the new card we got in set 7. It's the most playable card that we got in set 7, even though it doesn't soul charge, which really sucks. Like, this would be so much better if it's soul charge. Like, even if it was soul charge 1, you could, like, theoretically take out your swirlers and just play 4 of these, but, like, it's just like a big beat stick. It's a very fragile beat stick. Like, after you use this, more often than not, your opponent can attack into it with anything, and you probably don't have the hand to guard it, because your hand is, like, very vital to, I need this hand to survive, because all I need to do is get to my next turn and surmount the same amount of pressure I did on my first grade 3 ride up, or, like, a little bit less depending on my opponent's hand. But the Lilac Lashers are, like, really good. It's really good on your first grade 3 ride up, especially if you went first. But again, like, they're very susceptible to being just, like, cleared because they have a 2K base. Getting on to the rest of the deck. The 3 DPGs and then 1 Blitzorder PG. There's really not much to talk about here. The Blitzorder PG, like, even though you don't keep, like, that big of a hand, it is necessary in certain matchups because of guard restrict, and again, because of, like, guard restrict, or if, like, you're up against a grade 4 deck, it's really good, obviously. But again, because you don't have that much of a hand, it's very vital to, like, run this, even though, like, the DPGs are preferable in most scenarios. And then going on to the triggers, running 4 regular heal triggers. I've tried every other heal. These are just, like, what works best for me. Like, I really do prefer the 15k heals. 4 vanilla crit. 4 into soul crit. This can become another combo piece depending on your hand. 3 effect draws. And then, hold on. 3 effect draws and one Dark States OT. There's really nothing much to talk about here. Oh, well, actually, I think there is something to talk about because I know most people are playing like 6 to 7 to 8 draw triggers. I did try that build initially when I was playtesting this deck. Like I literally ran this deck up against the best deck I have in my arsenal right now, which is Revoldad, my Revoldad Youthberg deck. And it was winning games initially, but not because of the draw triggers. The draw triggers never really came up per se. I would either like draw them or like I would resolve one draw trigger a game. To whereas you put the draw trigger, you put the quote unquote the extra draw triggers in the deck because it gives you extra chances to see more of your combo pieces because you require so many cards to get your 15 cards in Soul. But I don't know, I just have like a bad track record with draw triggers in this deck. They just never seem to work for me personally. So like I always just like falling back on the crits. Like crits have never failed me. Crits just win games sometimes. If your opponent has to no guard at 3 or no guard at 2, and then you could just put them to 5 or just put them to dead. I am still running draw triggers in the deck, even though I was running fronts before, I do believe, is because my theory with the draw triggers is any of these triggers are good to check in any stage of the game because you generally don't commit cards until your turn 3. So if you get a front trigger, it's practically wasted. But that's my current theory. I might go back to fronts depending on the shield value of the deck. The shield in this deck is really lacking. Really lacking because it's just like your combo takes up like 90% of your hand or like 100% of your hand, and sometimes depending on your opponent's damage count or like depending on like what your opponent damage checked or like the sculpture of their hand, it's just like not enough in certain scenarios. Like I feel like in a way that this deck has been power crept, like, and it really sucks because this is like this is like one of my favorite decks in Overdress, but it just feels like it just feels so glass cannon right now in comparison to like other formats, to whereas like the defense I surmount isn't enough anymore, at least against the tier 1 decks in my opinion, because I did just test against tier 1 because I wanted to see the validity of this deck. But another thing I do want to sorry for rambling guys, but this is my deck, so I gotta talk shop about it. One thing I do say about draw triggers is that it's easier to damage deny your opponent with draws versus playing more crits. The crits, funny enough, when I was playing 4 crits, I saw more crits, or like I saw the crit when it mattered versus like I'll see the crit in the early game and like yeah, I put my opponent to like that extra damage and it makes my turn 3 scarier, but at the same time it gives my opponent to utilize more of their counterblast resources, which like really sucks against youth because they could just do so much of CB. But that's basically the deck profile, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will be showing more content in the future. Later.